Hi, and welcome back to the Save It for Parts channel. Today we're checking out a Spot satellite messenger. This is the upgraded version from the prior Spot that I showed in an earlier video. This one is the SpotX, and it's set up kind of like a BlackBerry phone or a Mesh-tastic messenger. It's got a built-in keyboard, nice little screen, a bigger antenna than the previous Spot messenger that I messed around with. And this one is a little bit more user-friendly. You can send actual custom messages instead of just having 3 or 4 preset messages on the old messenger device. This one is more like traditional text messaging. Now the screen is pretty basic. It's just black and white, no backlight, and it just has a few different options here. We can read and send messages, we can have a contact list or phone book, we can check in with our GPS position for people at home following along on a hike or a boating expedition or some other trip that I'm on. I can do some basic navigation, although it doesn't have built-in maps. It will kind of tell me distance and direction to predefined waypoints. As with the other Spot messengers, we have an SOS button, so if we lift this cover and hold down that SOS button, it will send an emergency message to first responders, the Coast Guard, search and rescue, etc. And these Spot devices use the Globalstar satellite phone network, so this is kind of like Iridium, but it's another company that offers satellite phones, IoT tracking, kind of satellite internet for devices, Internet of Things. And the Spot Messenger is just a human-readable interface with that, basically the consumer model of Globalstar's tracking devices for companies, for ships, for shipping containers, things of that nature. These things have been around for a while. As I said, I did an earlier video with the Spot Gen 3. We tracked a trip across the US on a train. I think this is the oldest version that still works. I actually have a Gen 1 and a Gen 2 that I got on Craigslist, but I think the Gen 3 and the Spot are kind of the older ones, and they do have a newer model that's basically just a Bluetooth interface, and you can send text messages from your phone up to the Globalstar network through that. So I'm going to be giving this a really good real-world test by taking it up to Alaska, and we're going out on a boat for 10 days, and we don't have a lot of cell phone coverage, or at least I don't think we have cell phone coverage in some of the places we're going to be boating to. So this is actually going to get some use, and it's potentially a nice thing to have for emergencies or just staying in touch with family and friends so that they don't think there's an emergency when there really isn't. So we're going to get into that in a little bit here, but before we go up to Alaska, I do want to test it out at home in Minnesota and just see how it works, test out what situations it works in, and how to best use it. So the messaging interface looks just like a text messaging interface. We've got messages to and from the device, mostly test messages that I've sent back and forth. I do have a screen protector on here, and it didn't sit down all the way, so I've got some bubbles in there, but down on the lower right, we can write a new message or we can delete the message thread. We can also manually check for new messages incoming to the device, or we can set a fetch refresh interval. I think mine is set for 10 minutes. Every 10 minutes it sends out a tracking ping and it looks for new messages to download. Now this thing works great with my phone. If I send a text to my phone number, it just shows up as a regular SMS message, and this thing has a mobile number so I can reply right back to it, and then other people can text to it as well. It's kind of designed for single use. It's really designed for hiking, so you're kind of supposed to have this clipped to your body. The antenna works best aimed straight up, and that does kind of run into some issues. If you're using this boating, if you're in a vehicle, if you lay it flat, it gets really upset, and it actually has warning messages that said, don't lay it flat, the antenna's not going to get a signal, it wants to be upright at all times. So I tested that out a little bit. It does actually work fine just lying flat on the dashboard of my car. It goes through the window of the car just fine. It kind of works hanging upright from the ceiling of the car like this with the antenna pointing up to the metal roof of the car, although it took about 20 to 25 minutes for a message to actually go through that way. So it's not very good at going through solid surfaces. It's supposed to be used outside. Another thing I noticed is that it doesn't always get all the messages sent to it. So I actually sent a couple test messages from my phone. This got one of the messages. It got the second message I sent, but not the first one. And they don't get saved and backlogged in the Globalstar system, so if this misses an incoming text message, it never gets it again, or at least as far as I can tell, because I have a message from yesterday that has just never come through, and later messages have. So keep that in mind. If your family and friends are sending you text messages, and you're in a cave, or you're under a roof, or you're in dense forest, and you miss one of those text messages, you might miss it permanently. It might just never come through. So you'll want to do your regular check-ins on here and let your family and friends know if they send you a message and you don't reply to it, they might have to send it again. I should note that this is not a sponsored review. I'm not being paid to talk about this device. I did not get a free one. Actually, I did get a free one because my friend gave this to me, but so a friend of mine did give me his old one, so it's a used device, secondhand. I was able to go and register it. My friend actually had some issues registering it on his account. He said it was stuck in something called kiosk mode. I don't really know what that is, but I was able to call up Spot, and it did have a weird activation number in here, but they were able to tell me the real activation number and get it working. So Spot tech support was pretty good. It didn't take long to get a hold of tech support. They got the issue resolved. They got this working. And as far as I can tell, it's ready to go. So I did ask Spot and Garmin if they would, either of them would send me one of their satellite trackers for the Alaska trip, and they never got back to me.
All right, enough talking head. Let's see some Alaska footage. We went on our big boat trip. We went all around Admiralty Island in southeast Alaska. We had cell phone coverage for part of the trip, but no service for a lot of areas. So how did the Spot Messenger perform? I had this set up to share our location to the Spot website, and I had a password set up so friends and family could log in, look at where we were, and they could send messages through the website or through their cell phones. And I could send a regular check-in message every night when we anchored up or tied up the boat, and I could also send text messages from the Spot. Now that was all just great in theory, but in reality, in real-world use, the SpotX did have some issues.
All right, a couple equipment issues. This thing keeps getting a little pause icon on the tracking.
I could just turn tracking back off and then on again and it would work for another hour or so, but it was really annoying to keep doing that. This trip on the whole was fantastic. It was a great adventure through some really beautiful and remote spots. Unfortunately, the SpotX Messenger wasn't really a helpful piece of equipment on this journey. I never knew for sure if messages were going to go through, how quickly they would go through, or how long the tracking would work. We did get some messages in and out of it, and it was a fun toy, but that's really what it was, kind of a toy. I couldn't and wouldn't trust it 100% for safety or as the only communication method. I actually brought an Iridium satellite phone along on this trip as well, so we didn't have to rely just on the Spot, and we did have another method of communication if we needed it. Overall, the SpotX Messenger was okay-ish, and it definitely did let us send and receive some messages from family and friends when we were out of cell phone range. I can't really trust it though. It kept pausing that tracking. That was really frustrating, and it was really annoying to have to keep activating and deactivating the tracking every hour or so, sometimes more often. And I really can't figure out why it does that. I looked through the manual, I looked on Spot's website when we got back, and the manual basically just says it does that sometimes. It doesn't explain why. It doesn't say how to avoid it. I'm not sure if that's because this is a used unit and maybe it's got some kind of an issue. Maybe there's something wrong with it. I don't know if they all do that. Again, I tried asking Spot to send me a brand new one of these to test out and review, and they just never got back to me. So from my experience with a used model, I have to assume that Spots aren't reliable. I have to assume they're not going to track reliably. The messaging seems to work okay, but it definitely is lossy. It's a little bit laggy. So it's not the fastest. It's really hard to use this little keyboard. It's really easy to type things wrong. It's really hard to go back and delete things. So it's kind of a terrible keyboard. It's kind of a terrible user interface. This little Meshtastic Messenger with the weird Saudi Arabian keyboard actually works better and has a better user interface than the Spot. I was really hoping to record the entire journey on the Spot's track, but the way it kept pausing and losing tracking meant that we have big gaps in the map that I created, which is really unfortunate. Fortunately, the boat's onboard tracking worked fantastically well, and we were able to get a nice track of our route just from the boat's hardware. Again, maybe a brand new one wouldn't have some of those issues, but based on my experience, I wouldn't waste my money on a brand new one. Personally, yeah, I probably won't bring this on another trip. I'll keep it, but I think I will go back to the old Spot Gen 3. I got that one used as well. I got it from an outdoor adventure company that had heavily used it and beat it up a little bit, and it had no issues. It tracks flawlessly. It sends predefined messages flawlessly. I have no issues with the Gen 3. Of course, the Gen 3 has drawbacks. You can't send custom messages like you can with the keyboard. You can't get incoming messages, but really, if you want to track something, if you want reliable tracking, especially hands-off tracking, where you don't have to babysit the device, one of these is more reliable. This thing, I think even if the tracking worked flawlessly, this still has a lot of issues. The messaging is slow and laggy. It's lossy. You can't guarantee that you're going to get incoming messages. So if there's some kind of issue, for example, we had a tsunami warning when we were up in Alaska, and several people were trying to contact us saying, do you know about this tsunami warning? And we got some of those messages, but I don't know if we got all of them. And if you had friends and family trying to contact you for something like that and you weren't responding, they would just end up worrying more. So yeah, it's not really trustworthy for that sort of thing. That's all I've got for this video. We've got a bunch of other Alaska content. If you're interested in the rest of our adventure, you can check out the places we went, some of the things we saw, some of the other communication methods we used, like that Iridium phone, and all of that is either on my channel now or coming out soon, so stay tuned for that. Thanks to everyone out there for watching, and we'll see you next time.